Our anime begins with an orphan boy who has lived with his grandfather his entire life because his parents died a long time ago. But recently his grandfather also left this world and now he was all on his own, and while he was on his way to the store for some food, many people began to flee from a thug. He also considered doing the same thing, but was stopped by seeing girls who had fallen down in fear. That thug was about to kill them, but he intercepted him to save the girls. But in the process he lost his life saving them, and then he opened his eyes in a completely different world as a nobleman's son as Cian. His maid Sylvia and his mother Sarah were overjoyed to see that Cian had finally woken up after a week of sleeping. Cian was very confused of this sudden situation. So, considering Cian awoke in a week, Sarah and Sylvia let him rest and left, but he quickly adjusted as he learned about his new life. Then he was reborn as the son of Graham and Sarah, and he gradually learned about his new life from Sylvia. Sarah is Graham's second wife, the first being Maria, and they already had 2 sons, making him the third, but he also has an older sister. His parents regard him as a genius because he can write and do maths at the age of 3. Then his older sister Rain taught him the 300-year-old history of Kingdom Selford, and the one who created this kingdom was a Japanese guy named Yuya. And Cian immediately realized his power in magic and became excited about it. He then waited for 2 years for his baptism at church, while his father told him about the details of baptism on the way. In which a person receives God's blessing when he is older, so she serves as an example of how they all receive God's blessing, which grants everyone a status system. After a long wait, Cian arrives at church to be baptized, but while he was praying to the God, his consciousness was teleported to heaven, where he saw the 7 gods of this world: Xenom, Rhyme, Saras, Renan, Grim, Panam, and Bella. Rhyme informs Cian that the god of his world has requested that he be reincarnated in his world for the good deed he has done to save those girls, but sadly, even if Cian didn't intervene, that thug would have felt down himself. Cian thought of his death as a meaningless act, but because of it, he has gained the attention of God themselves. Now they gave Cian blessing of God of merchant, creation, magic, martial arts, swordsmanship, and so on. He received the highest level of protection blessing that anyone could have ever received from all 7 gods, which stunned everyone present in the chruch. Then, because he was shy, Cian ran away and hid to see his stats, only to discover that God had granted him an inhuman level stats. Normally a person can only reach up to level 5. But Cian was of level 10 from the start, but he found a skill with which he could cover his statusu, and that made him relive a bit. However, while at home, Graham became curious about his skills and asked Cian to show it to him, and upon seeing it, his eyes were filled with shock to see his ability and magic power. Cian did hide his level but forgot to hide other abilities. Graham immediately ordered him to hide his stats and never show it to anyone, and if he does, a civil war could be waged to bring him under higher-up control. Cian understands what his father told him but forgets every time he learns a new fantasy thing like summoning. He tried it out right away and accidentally summoned a monster in their backyard. Unfortunately, Rain was their Parama and that monster was about to harm them. Cian recalls his previous death and yet jumps in to save the girls again, but then undoes the summoning in time before he was harmed by it. Cian was an expert at magic, so he requested proper instruction from adventurers. Graham then hired 2 adventurers as per Cian's request, but as they were about to enter the mansion, Cian got a little too excited and fell down on one of them between her. Then as he apologized, they made their way into the mansion to greet the lord of the town Graham. They are young D-rank adventurers named Millie and Nina. They quickly began their training. For starters, Millie asked Cian to demonstrate his swordsmanship, and as he did so, Nina had the impression that he was even better than Millie. Being shy, Millie wanted to see it for herself because she didn't want her self-esteem to be bested by a 5-year-old, but it was pretty clear who was the winner. But when it came to magic, Cian surprised them even more by showing all of the elements' power, and not only that, he was casting enchanted magic, which not even a royal court mage can do. They were surprised to find out that he was blessed by the god of magic and swordsmanship at the same time, but little did they even know about his real power. But then they hit the bottleneck when they saw a 5-year-old holding an item box that can store anything. Then from their point of view, Cian was a prodigy and his power were so great that if he started practicing in their home, he could very well destroy it. So Cian himself gave the idea to take their training outside, but his father has never let him leave the mansion even once in his life, but when Mill and Nina requested it. Graham gave his consent, but only on the condition that Cian return before sunset. Getting Graham's permission, it was the first time for Cian to step outside of his mansion for training purposes, so Cian started with a massive fire that destroyed a bit of an area. So Millie and Nian thought Cian would exhaust using too much mana, but that didn't seem to be the case. Then they felt the presence of a monster that was about to attack them. But it turned to attack Cian. That monster made a mistake by rushing to Cian as he took it out in a single air spell, so Cian put it in his item box to show it to his parents. And Millie and Nina get impressed every time they see that item box. As a matter of fact, both of them wanted a magic bag, but the cost was too high, so they were unable to get one. Just to be safe, Nina did a search spell to find more of the monster and get rid of them so that the Cian copies it by watching it and makes and saw an accurate position of every monsters with a precise number. Then, after taking everything out, one managed to escape, and Cian was about to follow it, but Millie and Nina stopped him, and they forbade Cian from ever entering that forest. Because it's a lair for the most dangerous monsters, and every now and then a monster outbreak occurs, and the city suffers greatly as a result. But adventurers and knights band together to protect the people's lives. After returning home before sunset, Kane checks his progress and figures out that he has risen to the 8th level simply by defeating a low-level monster. He then looks into the source of his super speed and discovers that he has a boost of 100 times his real XP. Then the other day, Millie and Nina took Cian to the guild to look for a decent monster for Cian to train with, but there was no sightseeing of the monster that had happened. And some goons started molesting Millie and Nina in there, and Cian couldn't take it in, so Cian mans up and stopped him from touching Millie. That guy got emotionally hurt and started attacking a kid, but Cian dodged everything he threw. Getting frustrated with him, he used his sword against Cian, but it didn't even work in the slightest as he threw all 3 of them out and impressed them even more. Also wanted to hide the fact that Cian has the blessings of the god of martial arts, but it doesn't matter when it comes to saving the girls. Then Cian returned to training, and just like that, 3 years had passed, and Cian to turn 7, and now it was time for Millie and Nina's contract to come to an end. Sylvia suggested extending their contract, but Cian didn't want to bind them down from adventuring, and this past 3 years Cian had a very good time with both of them. Cian recalls that both wanted a magic bag, so he set off alone to the monsters' forest to collect the item. Cian's first prey was a bloody orc, and his second prey was a green earth dragon. His spell created such a large effect that the guard mistook it for a monster outbreak, so Graham led his troops to defend the town only to discover that it was a false alarm. However, in that destroyed area, he discovered a Cian handkerchief and inquired about it. As he made sure it was Cian Graham, he scolded him for almost revealing his power to others. He had to listen to that for a while, but then it was time for Cian to say goodbye to Millie and Nina, but he had prepared his gift. But when they heard that Cian took out a bloody ogre and an earth dragon for material, their minds just went black because from the information of their power, it would take an entire Ranka adventurer party to deal with it. But Cian changed the subject by telling them it had the space of an Anite mansion and that no one but 3 of them could hold it, and that if anyone tried, he would be carrying the weight of 3 carried. Cian made a national level treasure without even knowing, but that doesn't matter because his intentions were good, and for that Cian got 2 kisses from them for the farewell. So our video for today comes to an end, but stay tuned for another because Cian will be getting some new girls in his harem.